Good morning, guys. It's 8 a.m. and so we'll get started. If anybody else jumps in late, we'll be able to help get them caught up too. We're going to be meeting today and tomorrow, and then we'll be done with our in-person meetings. Tomorrow will also be the last of the assignments that I'm planning on giving to you, allowing us next week to be able to finish up with the course. Make sure your grades look the way that they should. And as usual, I've been trying to update as messages come in. Yesterday, I was able to get a big chunk of grading done, including recent ed puzzles. And my hope is that you're finding that my strategy seems to be working for kids who are engaged. If you're doing the ed puzzles and even if you run into the problems, the way that the ed puzzles are working is that you are doing the video itself, which is worth 5 points to watch the video. The questions are 1 point apiece. We're adding the bonus 1 point that we normally do on tests for any tricky sort of questions, especially since I am lifting resources from other teachers, and some of the questions sometimes are not worded the best. So keep me in the loop if you have any questions like those of you who did yesterday. And hopefully you're seeing a positive impact then on your grade, while also getting content covered that we normally would have done before the AP test, but instead we're doing now in a more quick fashion. Let me walk you through a few different things that I've got for you today, and then we'll get you guys going. Make sure, please, that you're taking your attendance today. And today you're going to be working with an ed puzzle about George W. Bush. And George W. Bush's presidency, starting in 2000, is going to be the signal for a new time for our politics, especially given how partisan the election itself was. So in 2000, it was super weird. The election itself had so few issues because we were done with the Cold War. We weren't running a deficit anymore. We actually were trying to figure out what to do with all of this extra tax money that we had because we were no longer on a war footing. We were debating what to do with Social Security. The stock market was so booming that there was a plan being put forward by George W. Bush that we should take the stock market, take your Social Security and invest some of it in the stock market to allow you to make even more money. Fortunately, we didn't go with that route because of the fact that we had a crash at the end of the Bush presidency. But what we're going to have is a disruption to the kind of peaceful time period that we had. Starting right from the beginning, the election itself was a mess. It was one of two recent elections, Donald Trump being the other, where the person who won the election won the Electoral College but did not win the popular vote. Also in that election, President George W. Bush barely won the election because of what happened in the state of Florida. And we had a number of things go wrong in the state of Florida. We had a lot of confusion going on in the state of Florida. The governor of the state was George W. Bush's brother, Jeb Bush, who was in charge of trying to figure out if we should do a recount. And the Supreme Court, with 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats, decided in favor of George W. Bush, ending a recount in Florida and giving the election to George W. Bush. This created some partisan divisions on top of the ones that were created with the impeachment of Bill Clinton. And if you notice that nowadays we have quite a bit of partisanship and division, it's been building for the past couple decades between the two parties, with tense moments like that. During the Bush presidency, though, we're going to have 2 different events that are going to have even more of an impact on changing the way that our society works nowadays. Number one, we have the war on terror, starting with the 9/11 attacks. And they're going to fundamentally change the way that we are doing things, both here at home for fears of terrorism, and then also for our wars abroad, especially given the fact that we're going to enter into a war in Iraq, which is going to be highly divisive and highly controversial. Secondarily, after a period of deregulation, we're going to have an economic crash at the end of the Bush presidency. And that economic crash is going to be similar to what happened during the Great Depression and the previous panics that we had. But this over speculation that we're going to have is not based on land or the stock market. It's going to be based on houses, where people are going to be gambling on houses that they're going to be trying to flip for money. And after a couple decades of deregulation, from Reagan through Bush through Bill Clinton, some of our regulations like the Glass-Steagall Act and others have now been taken apart with the idea that we don't need that much regulation, that regulation is bad for the economy. And the result that we have is a massive crash that we're still feeling the impacts of a decade later. What you'll be doing with the Ed puzzle then, obviously your link is right here. I will throw that into your chat so that you're able to complete that hopefully sometime soon. I'll be grading those out tomorrow. The ones that you did with the assignment from yesterday, I'll be grading out today so you can see them being thrown in the grade book. Once I do a batch of grading, just let me know if you get something done later after the initial grading is done, because otherwise I have to scan through and look daily to find any sort of stray things that have come in. And very much I want to make sure that that's something that that I can minimize. So try to get your stuff done on time, but let me know if you get something done that I need to be looking at. Tomorrow, we'll be taking a look at the Obama presidency and the election of Donald Trump, which will bring us up to present times. And that way we'll be able to satisfy the content for the course, even though it's done in not quite the most thorough fashion that I would like to get done. In this age of coronavirus, I will be quite satisfied that we have done what we can to make sure that we've given you at least a survey of where we are currently. You have 1 week left to be submitting your work. Your work, I believe, is going to be due June 4th if you want to turn in late stuff, but we're waiting for confirmation from the principal as well about when the due dates are going to be. I will have an answer for you for that tomorrow. I sent you this message yesterday. This was also sent to your parents. And so consider these things. Your grades for the class are A, B, P, or I for the class. P replaces C's and D's. We are waiting also to hear from the district if we're going to still have pluses or minuses. In this class, we do not have any minuses for the class, but we did have pluses. So the question we're wrestling with is there still going to be a B plus that's available for you to earn? I will have that answer for you tomorrow. Notice also that we are moving the passing score down to 55%. Some kids have really struggled with getting access and opportunities to be able to do e-learning. And we want to make sure that students aren't penalized because of technological issues or whatever. So check out where you're sitting right now, because some of you guys are sitting at points where your grade could move up a grade level. If you are willing to put in the work or the time to get that done. Some of you guys are missing so much stuff. You might go up multiple grade levels at this point. And so if that's where your situation is, you want to be figuring out how to build that up, because this should be a time when you want to have your GPA get better, not worse. We also want to be thinking about what's going on with distance learning. These Ed puzzles are meant to fill up your category for testing, with some opportunities for you to improve your scores after all the hard work that we did earlier this semester with essay writing, multiple choice tests, and whatever. And so I would encourage you to do the Ed puzzles. If you are not doing them, you're probably seeing that your grade took a dip because there's just an empty spot where there should be points. I think that you'll find that once you dive into them, they are not that difficult to do. Make sure you've done your reading of the topic first, and use your reading and notes in conjunction with the Ed puzzle. Although I don't think the questions are all that difficult, even if you are finding that the reading is difficult to get done. Late work is going to be accepted through June 4th at the current time, and I'm waiting to hear from our principals about that. Keep in mind that your current percentage can drop if you're choosing not to do work. So continue getting today and tomorrow's assignment done. But then also keep in mind any zeros on your spreadsheet. Like if you are a baseball player and you're thinking about like batting average, one bad day of like an 0 for 4 at bats is something that can really hurt your batting average quite significantly with that zero sitting in there. Same thing with you guys. If you've got zero sitting anywhere on your grade reports, it's having a gigantic impact on your grade. You should fix that, starting with the categories that have the most impact. Tests are the most important, so find assessments first and get those done, then work your way through the essays. And then finally, notes are the thing that is the least impactful for your grade. And so be thoughtful when you're going through your work. If you are turning in work, please make sure you email me to let me know about that so I can make sure to get the grade put in for you. And then if you are confused, or else if you believe that your grade is so bad it can't be redeemed, I don't have anybody in my classes who is actually in this situation. But psychologically, it wouldn't be surprising to me if I have kids who thought they were in that situation. I do have kids who are in a situation where if they wanted to over the next week work the way that they need to, we could see their grade improve quite significantly. And so that's my goal. I'd love to have 100% passing in this class, given the fact that for most of the stuff that we've been doing for the past couple months, it's all been online. And your work to try to just demonstrate attempts at skills So if you are confused, if you're having problems or whatever, definitely let me know so I can help you out. The final thing I'll highlight for you before I turn you guys loose is the AP test was released yesterday. No, I'm sorry, 2 days ago to us, and I've now had a chance to be able to look through it. We aren't going to be doing a review of the AP test itself as far as like breaking down each question. And the reason why is because for your class, we had 19 different variations of the AP test that was offered to you guys on your test day. Those 19 variations were divided into 4 essay questions. And so the 4 essay questions that were asked were these. Number 1, evaluate the extent to which the ideas of Manifest Destiny motivated United States expansion in the period from 1830 to 1905. Essentially talking about what were the ideas of Manifest Destiny and how did it lead us through westward expansion and imperialism. The second question that they asked, evaluate the extent to which reform movements changed United States society in the period from 1877 to 1914. Again, that's going to be something that is covering a good amount of time, taking a look at reformers all the way from the end of Reconstruction through the Progressive era. Your third one, evaluate, let me see here, evaluate the extent to which the institution of slavery changed from 1754 to 1850. Which is pretty straightforward. And then finally, evaluate the extent to which the American Revolution changed society in the period from 1765 to 1800. Each of these had different documents attached to them, which gives us our 19 different variations. So each of the different essays, the 4 essay questions, had different combinations of documents. There were some that were shared, a lot of them were not. And so that was meant to make it difficult on AP test day to do any sort of cheating. I do have access to your essays, so they've been given back to me. And what I'm supposed to be doing is I'm supposed to be looking through them to determine if there was any sort of glitches with submission that I can see on my end that might then require some sort of makeup test at the end of June. I'll be doing that this week to find out if there's anything technologically that went wrong with your submissions. What I do have the ability to do, though, we do our AP reading mid-June. And so I think it's the 8th and 9th is when I do my training to be a table leader. So I'll be supervising other readers. We'll then read for a week and grade out your essays. It'll take about a month for the scores to be calculated. And so they'll be sending those scores out in the middle of July. If you find that you've got a question and you don't get a passing score, I can look over your essay to determine if we would like to appeal that. And what I would be able to do is I could run through the rubric and the grading process to see if your score is somehow off kilter. That's the offer that I'm going to throw to you guys. I don't know that we really want to spend a lot of time going through each of the 4 essay sets. Instead, what we'll be doing is I will run through the essays at the AP reading. You'll get your results. If you decide that you want a one-on-one, talk to me about how your essay went, or if you want to do that now, it's totally fine to do that. But I think at that time, we'll have some data from the College Board. I can give you feedback from what I'm seeing, and we can then go from there. Ty, I see your question. So tomorrow is the last day of new work. Tomorrow is the last day of everything. So new work will be giving you an ed puzzle for the Obama presidency to finish up. Tomorrow is the last day that we'll be meeting at 8 a.m. The rest of the time is meant to be getting caught up. And so if you are satisfied with your grade at that point, once I get that ed puzzle done, that'll be the grade that you see on your grade report. The week that we have then, the weekend and also next week, will allow kids to bend their grades upwards once they kind of get a feel for where they're standing at the end of this course. So tomorrow we'll meet at 8 a.m. We'll talk about the Obama presidency and the election of President Trump. We will wrap up then with our content and any questions you guys have, feel free to either drop them in the chat, send me an email, or else on mic if you'd like to. But otherwise, if you're good, I'm good. You guys have a great day.